Hello and welcome to the Vlogging Pod. Tonight we are joined by nominated of the year for 2021, Barbara Leonhard. Leonard, sorry, my pardon, Leonhard. There we go. I was trying to give you more of an accent. There you go. Okay. So I want to welcome all the audiences. We have a few in the room, and we are live on Facebook. I can't see the camera there, and on YouTube and Wisdom. So thank you everyone for coming in and being with part of the live audience today. I want to start off by going back a little bit and talking about a collection of poems by you, Barbara, about yourself and you took writing them.
When my mother told love her, and I go, what? She says, do you love her? And I thought, what? And that sent me into why he would ask that. And maybe she didn't think I loved her and told him that, or I had no idea. But so I just started writing a lot of poems to work my way through, helping her and just reliving our life, her life and my life together from, childhood to when she died. And we had a lot of interesting parallels that captured my imagination. Like, she helped me a great deal when I had measles encephalitis when I was 6 going on 7. I went in coma. I was paralyzed. I couldn't speak, eat, anything. And she took care of me. And I miraculously recovered and taught myself how to walk again.
Oh.
But it gave me, it made my learning harder in school. Before I was sick, I was able to say a book out loud. The memories were burned. I remember a whole lot before the age of 6.
Oh, wow.
Just the highlights. Yeah. So we had those parallels. And then another interesting parallel was our fertility. I mean, she was very fertile. She had 7 kids put together and worked through I had to work through some forgiveness. She didn't take the drug on purpose. She didn't purposely wreck my frequency.
Right.
I had to reconcile that and other things like and the usual mother-daughter challenges,
right,
that are very challenging for me to learn about, that she had never told me about. And so there's a lot in there about her character and mine. And I kind of I took a memoir writing class last year, Memoir Writing Inc. with Allison Waring. I don't know if you're familiar with her work.
No, I'm not.
She's a best-selling memoirs. And I learned, that class really helped me put the poems into a book, because she taught about containers. So the poems I have on Spill Words, like one is Cooking a Life with a Wire Spine. One of the assignments in the class was to compare your loved one to food, cooking everything homemade for the kids. She had to cook all day for 7 kids. And so, I often helped her in the kitchen. So that poem, Cooking a Life with a Wire Spine, is the container, the cookbook. She had that wire spine,
Right.
Was this kind of real, could be kind of strict and overbearing and, acting high character, a lot of, and don't lie to me and all this. And so I have a poem about her called Irish Spring, about getting the mouth washed out with Irish Spring soap.
Oh my goodness.
And another poem that one publication of the month at Spill Words was Marie Kondo Cleans My Purse at Starbucks. So I used the purse as the container, filled with all these memories that I had to let go of in order to finish healing after my mom died. All the things in the purse were things about her and me. And so, and also having this bigger vision of what she called a sky story. So I look at the mother wound My mother was wounded by her mother, who neglected her, she felt, and told us all the time about how she was just left to ride her tricycle everywhere all over Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, and up to the locks. She would just wave at sailors, This little 3-year-old girl,
right?
And so she had abandonment issues, but also she lost 2 sisters, one to the 1918 flu, and another one to crib death. And so those are things that she had to deal with, and her pain, a mother's mother wound, losing 2 babies, and then then my miscarriage, and so there's a lot about. And then one of my poems is, Mom and I played lassos with our hysterectomy scars.
Oh, jeez.
she had 7 kids, and the last one was a very traumatic birth. She almost died, so for a whole year she could do nothing but just wait for the nurse to come to take care of her at home. And I would come home and helping with 4 babies. Mom had one potty trained and getting potty trained, a set of twins in diapers, and then the newborn. So, and we didn't have, back in that day, it's 1960, 61, we didn't have paper diapers. So there was a lot of, feeding the babies. We would lie, looked at me and said,
would you say that it was a multiple time in your life to come to terms with a lot of things that you...
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, that are just kind of, and some of the topics are taboo, resenting your mother, so I'm thinking, here I am, I have a poem called Holding Out Soap, because Mom and I are shopping, and when she moved here, we would go shopping all the time and just get out and move around.
Right.
But then poor Mom, she was getting incontinent, and so there was this whole big thing at Target, in the bathroom. And I'm locked out of the bathroom, and I have to somehow help her. How do you get in? And so, just having to come to terms with her aging and her inability, and feeling very bad to what she needs.
I understand. And more that we are no longer, close. And I understand both sides of that. I understand being, a child of difficulties, you know what I'm saying, from whatever that stems from. And I understand having a daughter that sees the same things in you that you didn't think you had. So, but no matter what those are, I think as we age and as we go through the processes of life, some things don't mean as much to us as they did. Am I making sense? Some things that we grab on in our youth don't have as much weight to them as we get older. What you're saying, and I wasn't able to have any children outside of my one daughter, so I understand that completely. And I had a very difficult birth and conceiving, and I almost lost her 3 times in my pregnancy. So I fully understand what you're saying. And so I think the poetry is a great way to relive those moments, and you know what I mean, in your mark on life and hers, because you're not only being able to relive those moments perhaps more in a positive manner, but you're also, do you know what I mean? You're giving her a new life, because now when you're older yourself, you understand more about what she went through than maybe you did in those younger years. And that kind of...
we were not ever, I think we had the kind of normal mother-daughter stuff that would go on, but I was pretty obedient. But I think it's these major things that were just nagging at me. Like, if I feel like I don't love my mother, why would that be? And then it's been very healing, just putting it on paper, working it out, and then thinking, there are other women who may benefit from reading this book, because there are a lot of DES sons and daughters whose mothers were given this drug. It didn't really do what it was supposed to do. It wasn't really preventing miscarriages, but it caused it causes us cancer scares, the problems with our reproductive organs, our hormone system. It can even contribute to learning problems. So some of my learning problems could have been actually part of, I don't know, a big deal, because I would see at the cafe court at the mall other women with their mothers.
Yeah.
And I thought I ought to go make a support group or something, you know.
Well, I don't know about the medications that your mother was on, but it sounds I'm now I'm going to have to ask my mother, but it does sound reminiscent of some things that I have had happen in my own. I'm like, wait a minute.
Diethylstilbestrol. Diethylstilbestrol.
Well, get in my messenger on Facebook and text me that, because I will not remember. I will not know how to write that.
Right.
So why don't we pause just a moment, and I want to talk about the heart and soul part of your writing. Tell me about that. I hear you talk about what you say is your heart and soul play and part of your writing. Tell me how that plays out in your, you know what I mean, in your ritual of writing.
Oh, in the ritual of writing, like how I write.
Yes, please.
I like to really get into a space inside myself where I can find a poem or listen. You know, when a poem is rising, I try to hope that a pen is nearby, or you know, I do things like qigong, tai chi, and I've been taking up neurographica, which is a kind of, and that's been helping to help me relieve blocks. But I like to look at poetry as a spiritual act, because in a way it's a memoir of the soul, really. Poetry is the memoir of the soul. And with some of my favorite poets like Rumi, John O'Donohue, Mary Oliver, Emily Dickinson, you know, and I think almost every poet, you know, the way they put things, talk about the soul, talk about soul growth. So I think of writing as an extension of my soul, myself.
I totally agree with that. I really do. I think it is an extension of ourselves. A lot of our imagination, hopes and dreams can fit into our writing. It really can, whether it be poetry, fiction, whatever genre you're doing, it can play a very big part in that. I'm curious. I do a little bit of research, I'm sure you know, on each guest I have on. So I want to ask you what this phrase means to you. Concepts, images, and stories weave together into a poem. Tell me what that means to you.
Oh, yeah. Well, a poem is, it can be like a story in a way, or a reflection, but it's got to have a theme. What is it about? And poets tend to try to represent this theme in an image, you know, like a cookbook or you know, a purse or something. And was it concept, image, and then what else did I say?
Concept, images, and stories weave together into a poem.
Right. So yeah, so the reader can either see a kind of story, maybe it's like mine, I would call poetic memoir, or maybe apply it to a story in their lives. You know, how does this poem relate to my life story, or me? How does it appeal to my soul? And so, so I think when I wrote that for Spill Words, if that's where you got the phrase, I was probably working on this.
I dig a little bit of everywhere, so yeah.
I'm glad I remember. Okay. yeah. And I tend to, I guess my poems are a little bit like a journal, like from journal writing or whatever, you know, trying to put it together in a form that people understand, where it can also appeal to their senses with the imagery or sensory details, and appeal to them at really all levels.
Right.
Sensory levels, spiritual level, life level.
So, with your writing process, I understand you use an app called My Notes on your iPod for rough
Yeah,
drafts. Okay, explain
sometimes
the process to me on using that. I'm kind of like
well,
I've got to actually physically have. I have notebooks everywhere. So I have
yeah,
to, when I write, I have to physically touch it. I know that seems insane, but before I put it on
mhm,
the computer, I have to physically touch it. So when I say
yeah,
hear people do notes on the computer, I'm like,
yeah.
how?
I know. But I do have lots of notebooks, and they're not necessarily, I grab a notebook and I don't always date things, but I might do brainstorming or whatever.
Uh-huh.
But sometimes when like I'm sitting and the news is on or whatever, and I want to escape because when I want to sit next to my husband, but I don't want to watch the news. I'll take out my notes app and I'll just start writing instead of on piece of paper. So
Right.
and then I just write, and then I can email it to myself, and then I can open the email and save the document as a Word document and keep revising.
Now I have done that. I have emailed myself and then I copy and
Yeah.
paste and throw it in documents. So yes, I understand that completely.
Yeah.
Um, let's take a moment to pause about the honesty in poetry. Tell us
Um,
what moves you about it. Tell me about the honesty. Now, is
well,
that with every poem or is it just in a segment of poetry or do you feel that all poetry has a level of honesty embedded into it?
I I think if a poem is authentic, it has a very deep level of honesty. And I started, when I first started writing some poems, I wasn't really in touch with myself. But the more you're in touch with your true nature or your true self, the more honest you can be about what you're writing. And I found that the more honest I was and forthcoming, putting myself out there on paper, the more the poems moved people and myself moved me and it has more impact on people when it's from your authentic self. It's not just anyone's poem about a tree. It has it has I think good poetry has a kind of raw edge to it of I am coming out and I am speaking the truth with a knife.
I like
I
that.
with a
I
knife,
like
I
that.
slice my paper with words. I don't care what people think.
I love that phrase. I love that. Come out with a knife.
You just so you don't want it to be too sentimental, I don't think. And but I want a raw courage it took to write this book, which is the most important relationship probably, and yet the most painful at times. It's a very long love poem, and it does her service, even though she's died. Whatever we do to help heal ourselves will heal our ancestors. I think.
Right. You're referring to the poetry about your mother again. Yes.
Yeah, and
Okay.
and really any poetry I write, I want it to have that edge to it where it's coming from my true center, and it regardless of what other people may think about it, it comes from my authentic be healing for someone.
Right.
Yeah, and
I
it can be someone living. It can even be someone who's not living.
right. I can see that. I before when I was young, a lot younger, we won't go into the
Um,
definition of that. I find that it is very oh, it just lifts a even if you're just journaling it, I find that
right,
it's very therapeutic to do it. So
right,
and it does take a lot of honesty. It's very deep and it can be. Um,
right.
images are the heat of poetry. Can you relate to me what that means to you?
Yeah, I think
Oh, the
it's that
heart.
imagery.
Sorry, not
I'm
just the
sorry.
heat, the heart. Sorry.
Oh,
R. I forgot that R in that word there. I'm writing on my notes. And the heart, a heart, a book. There you go.
I don't know many poets. There's some good. Like Elizabeth Bishop wrote a beautiful poem about a fish, and it's just you want to read it over and over. It brings all the parts of the fish, just bring alive something in you that's different, a different part of you. And now this just beautiful poem about a fish, or uh, Emily Dickinson wrote about birds and things like that. These images evoke something from us, from the reader, you know. So we, without imagery, we have academic writing.
Right. Yes. I think
hope is a feather. I mean, she's saying hope is a feather.
right.
So we think, how is it a feather? I like feathers. That's what, you know. So
well, I fully understand. I fully understand because I love audibles to them. I have the image that interviewing at the time, but the questions might be similar in context, but there's always can be an underlying, do you know what I'm saying? An underlying meaning to somebody else who sees them slightly different than perhaps we do. So that's why I ask the questions. But I do agree with you. A lot of the times when you write, it's a basic image that you're seeing, or you're trying to portray that image. And when your readers can get that image by your words, oh my gosh, that is so, it's just any drug or wine that you can drink. You know what I mean? It's just, it's intoxicating. It is. And it's like when you,
it connects the neurons in a new way.
yes, it does. Barbara, I really have loved having you on. We just did our 20 minutes, but I really appreciate you coming on today. You were a joy. Your poetry is delightful. I have her link up in the room. Sunshineweaver.blog. Please check it out. Barbara is an extremely talented poetess. You really are. You can tell there's a lot of love and feeling and passion in your writing, and you are extremely gifted.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for being on my program. Oh, well, I would not say it if I did not mean it, and I truly say that. Welcome. I want to thank our listeners for coming in. We've only been up not quite a year, and we're already booked basically for this year. I have 3 slots open for December, and it's all because of you guys, because you have made us that much in a demand, and that just warms me to no end. We do have another guest coming up the 9th, Caitlin Denman. So please stay tuned and come with. And I'd love to have you back on. You truly are a joy. We could dive deeper in some other formats. I swear we could. Everyone, it was great having everybody on here tonight. I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye for now.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're wonderful. Thank you, hon.